during the early days, Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Vishnujan Swami, they started a program called Radha Damodar Bus Party. And they started off with one second-hand Greyhound bus. In America, there is a bus service called the Greyhound bus service. And so they bought an old bus and started that program. And it became so popular that in course of time they had 6 buses. 6 buses, and it became so popular. How did it become so popular? That whenever they would go to a temple, the brahmacharis would leave the temple, because the program in the bus party was so attractive. And also, people, those who came there, like especially young students and all, like they would come, the devotees would bring those youngsters to the bus, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Vishnujan Maharaj used to speak to them, the newcomers. And they used to tell me, I didn't see it myself, they used to tell me that they would come to the bus from one door, and by the time they came out of the other door, they got shaved up. So, yeah, that's how it should be. Like, spiritual life should be so exciting that one would, as soon as they came in contact with it, they would immediately think that this is what I wanted. Of course, as I said, things are different now, and it's not the same. Like those days, whoever came, we just grabbed them. My situation was not like that. I didn't come to the bus party, but I came to Mayapur. I came in the evening and I shaved up the next morning. So, and nobody had to tell me anything. It was just because we saw. One thing is, those days, how things were different those days. Because those days, many of us were actually searching. We were searching for something that will bring some meaning to our lives. And as soon as we came to Krishna consciousness, at least that's how it happened to me. As soon as I came to Srila Prabhupada's teachings, Nectar of Devotion, it just became clear to me this is what I was looking for. So, a sincere soul will always search for some purpose of his existence. And that's why I urge to the youngsters to kind of seriously consider this Krishna consciousness, and it's happening. The youngsters are coming, but what I tell them, after you complete your studies, go and work for some time, because that's one thing also we learned from our mistakes. Those days, many of us just spontaneously joined ISKCON, leaving behind our without even considering about the future. And those who remained in ISKCON, it was fine with them. But those who got married and tried to fend for them and had to fend for themselves, they faced some problems because they didn't really have proper education, they didn't have proper training, they didn't have the skill. So they had to struggle. Those days, many of the devotees had to take up jobs in gas stations, filling gas in the petrol pumps. That's about the only job they could take, because they couldn't take up a job in a restaurant or things, because all the restaurants are non-veg. And so that's why we learned our lessons, and that's why I tell devotees that just complete your studies, work for a couple of years, so that someday if you go back to that world, then at least you have something to fall back on. So, but the best thing is to come with a one-way ticket. So today I thought that instead of just telling stories, we'll get into some serious things. And that is Krishna's instructions, and that is Bhagavad Gita. So that is one very important aspect of Krishna's pastimes. That is actually, in a way, that is the most important aspect of Krishna's pastimes. Although Krishna did not play such an important role in Mahabharata, Mahabharata is actually centered around the Pandavas. But whenever Krishna appeared in Mahabharata, he just, like brilliant as the sun, he came in. And the height of Krishna's appearance in Mahabharata is during the battle of Kurukshetra. He came to different other occasions, like when Draupadi was being insulted, Krishna came to her rescue. When Arjun and Krishna were in Hastinapur, they had this, and they went out traveling. Then they encountered Agnidev, who was suffering from dyspepsia, indigestion. He drank so much ghee that he was suffering from Agnimanda. Agnidev was suffering from Agnimanda. That is, Agnimanda is a disease. In English, a word for that is dyspepsia. The Sanskrit word is Agnimanda, which means lack of fire. So Agnidev had lack of fire to digest the food because he drank so much ghee. And you can rest assured that when you drink too much ghee, you don't feel like eating anything. And in Ayurveda, there is a treatment called snehopanam, drinking ghee. And they make you drink a lot of ghee. And for 7 days, all you do is just drink ghee. And it's a way of cleansing the body. So anyway, so Agnidev was suffering from lack of Agni, and so he had to burn something to ignite the fire. So there was a forest called Khandav forest. And so he wanted to eat that forest, or rather set the forest in fire. But each time he approached, Indra came and extinguished the fire with rains. So Krishna and Krishna and Arjuna were there at that time. So Agnidev approached them and asked them to help. And so they agreed, and eventually when Agnidev was burning that forest, then Indra came to extinguish that forest, and Arjuna had a big fight with Indra. And he actually defeated Indra and allowed Agnidev to eat the fire. Sort of burn the forest. So anyway, this is another occasion when Krishna was there. When Krishna got married to Kalindi, it was also around that time. He went to Jamuna where she was performing austerities. Arjuna was there with him. In this way, from time to time, Krishna appeared in Mahabharata, but he did not play a very prominent role. But when it came to Bhagavad Gita or the Battle of Kurukshetra, then Krishna played a very, very important role. And in Bhagavad Gita, as we all know, in Battle of Kurukshetra, as we all know, when the battle was about to begin, then Krishna spoke this most elevated, most profound, and the most sublime wisdom to Arjuna. Bhagavad Gita, in a way, is the essence of the Vedic culture. So what I will try to explain through this is that how Bhagavad Gita is leading to the highest spiritual understanding, or most elevated spiritual understanding. The Vedas have 3 sections. Those 3 sections are karma, jnana, and bhakti. The preliminary level is karma. The next level is jnana. And the final level is bhakti. It is not that there are 3 different branches or 3 different levels and all are equally important. No. Sometimes people think that. But Chaitanya Charitamrita actually makes it very clear that Karma Kanda section of the Vedas and Jnana Kanda sections of the Vedas are not important. Rather, it has been mentioned that Karma Kanda section and Jnana Kanda section of the Vedas are like 2 pots of poison. Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, Keboli Bishero Bhando, Omrito Bolia Jeba Khai, Nana Joni Bhraman Kore, Kodurjo Bhakkhan Kore, Tar Janmo Adhoppate Jai. Meaning, Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda sections of the Vedas are actually 2 pots of poison. And if one drinks that poison, thinking it to be nectar, Amrita Bolia Jeva Khai, he simply transmigrates from one body to another. he eats all kinds of garbage, all kinds of abominable things, kadarja bhakkhan kare, tar janmo adhopate jaya, and his birth, his existence goes to, his existence is doomed. So, so this is how we can see that karma kanda and jnana kanda are not really important aspects of the Vedas. What really matters is bhakti. And why karma kanda and jnana kanda is there? To suit different people's approach. Like, what is the natural affinity or natural desire for a living entity? What does a living entity naturally want? A living entity naturally wants to enjoy. So Karmakanda section of the Vedas are giving that, how to enjoy. How to enjoy. Like we can see with our common sense, if we want to enjoy in a wrong way, then we end up getting punished. So enjoyment in a wrong way is not desirable. Rather, one should try to enjoy in a right way. And the Vedas are giving the right way to enjoy. Yaggarthat karmano annatra lokoyam karma bandhana. Activity should be performed for the sake of sacrifice. Yagya. Yagya means activity should be performed for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that will give you facilities to enjoy. That is the simple understanding of karma kanda. Perform these activities in the right way, you will enjoy. It is something like you prepare yourself in a right way, then you'll earn a lot of money and you'll be able to enjoy. But no matter how much one tries to enjoy, can anybody have uninterrupted enjoyment? No. There is no uninterrupted enjoyment. Although we do not want to suffer, suffering comes. Nobody invites suffering. Nobody says, suffering, please come. Everybody's prayer is, oh, how can I enjoy? How can I enjoy? Nobody ever considers, how can I suffer? How can I suffer? Nobody ever tries to invite suffering. What they try is to ward the suffering off, push it aside, so that it doesn't affect us. That's what we do with suffering. So, the right way to enjoy is like you prepare yourself nicely and you will be able to enjoy. You prepare yourself nicely, you make a lot of money and you will be able to enjoy it. But no matter, actually, and this enjoyment that the Vedas are offering, fulfillment of desire, goes all the way up to attaining the position of Lord Brahma. In this material nature, what can be greater than the position of Lord Brahma? So, the Karmakanda section of the Vedas are providing the opportunity to even go up to Lord Brahma. But then the consideration is, no matter where we are suffering. So then one wonders, why am I suffering? So that is actually taking him to the next level. That is Jnanakanda. And through Jnanakanda one gets to know that the material nature is a place of suffering. And this body is an instrument for receiving pain. This material nature is a place of suffering, and the body is an instrument to receive pain. So, how can we avoid suffering then? If this is a place of suffering, can we avoid suffering? What we can do at the most, and what we are always doing, is to prevent the suffering condition. Safeguard, protect ourselves from suffering. That's what we are always doing. We're struggling not to suffer. But when one realizes that there's a place of suffering, and suffering is inevitable, and naturally one doesn't want to suffer, so what would be his natural tendency? How can I get out of here? This tendency, how to get out of here, is taking us to the Jnanakanda section. How to get out of here. And Bhagavad Gita there also teaches us how to get out of here in a positive way. We can get out of the prison if we consider that this is a prison house. Then we can get out of the prison in two different ways. One way is by digging a tunnel out of the prison, or scaling the wall, or nowadays also we heard that sometimes the prisoners escape with helicopters. At some point the helicopter comes, drops a rope, and the prisoner just climbs up and escapes. But the thing is, no matter whichever way we escape, we cannot really become free from the suffering condition. Like we may go out of the prison, but our condition may become even worse. At least in the prison, timely they were getting the food. In the prison they had some shelter, some bed to sleep on, and so forth. But now he has to hide from the police. He may have escaped, but the police is behind him. He can't be in open places. He hides. And if he is caught, then his prison sentence will be even more severe. So is this the right way of getting out of the prison? No. What is the right way then? The right way is to surrender to the king. Become obedient to the king. Then the king may free one. So here also this material nature is a place of suffering. Dukkhalayam ashvashatam. This material nature is a place of dukkhalayam, a place of suffering. And whatever happiness is there is ashvashatam, is only temporary. Therefore, we must get out of here. But how to get out of here? Bhagavad Gita is pointing out that it's by rendering service to the Lord or performing sacrifice. And so these are the two ways. Out of this, which one is a positive way of getting out of the prison? By surrendering to the, or appealing to the king. And then finally, when one becomes an unalloyed devotee to the Lord, then he achieves the ultimate platform. Like now, he can become properly situated. Okay, so then finally, Bhagavad Gita is giving us the instruction how to surrender to Krishna and what's the reward for that surrender. So, Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters and it has 700 verses. So what's the Bhagavad Gita's background? How many of you know the background of Bhagavad Gita? How many of you don't know the background of Bhagavad Gita? Few hands, how many of you know? Few hands, how many of you don't know? And how many of you refuse to raise your hands? Raise your hands. Those who didn't raise your hands, please raise your hands. What's the matter? Okay, I know how to make you raise your hands. How many of you want to hear about the background? Now everyone is. See, this is your trick. You just raise your hands and you compel me to talk. Okay. Anyway, what to do? Like, I have already subjected myself to this condition. Okay, this is coming from a dynasty called Chandravamsa. It's coming from moon god, Somdev. And in this line, as I remember the other day, I mentioned about a king called Jajati. From Jajati came a specific dynasty called Puru dynasty. And in that dynasty, there was an illustrious king called Shantanu. Shantanu got married to Ganga Devi, the celestial river, who is personified is a consort of Krishna actually. So Shantanu got married to Ganga Devi and she gave birth to 7 children, and right after their birth she took them to the river and drowned the newborn babies. She did that, okay, that's another history. Once the 8 Bashus, there are 8 demigods. There are different categories of demigods also. Like there are 12 Adityas. 12 Adityas and 7 sages, Shaptarshis, 8 Vashus. So these 8 Vasus were traveling through the space, and they saw their wife, one of their wives, one of the Vasu's wife, saw a beautiful cow, and she wanted to have that cow. And the other Vasus told, don't do that, no, don't desire that, because that cow is the daughter of Surabhi. Her name is Nandini, and this cow is in possession of Vasishta Muni. And Vasishta Muni is very fond of this cow, and so there is no way you can get this cow. So she insisted, and then finally, being pestered in this way, they stole the cow. When Vasishta came back and couldn't find Nandini, so through his mystic vision, he could see what actually happened. And he saw how the Vasus came and stole the cow. So Vasishta cursed that you all are not fit to remain in the heavenly planets. Your behavior is so abominable that you go down to the earth planet. And there you become human beings. Now, for a demigod to become a human being is a big demotion, big fall down. So they came to Vasishta, begged for forgiveness, please forgive us. Vasishta said, the words that have gone out from my mouth is not going to go in vain, it's going to happen. But if Ganga becomes your mother, then right after your birth, you will be delivered. But the one who stole the cow, physically, he'll have to stay in the earth planet for a long time. So that is why Ganga came, got married to Shantanu, and as the children were born, they were dropped in the river, killed, because they were meant to just die. They came, got the human form, died. And so this is how 7 of the children got drowned. But the 8th one survived. Survived in the sense that Ganga had a condition when she agreed to marry King Shantanu, that if ever you contest or question my activity, even if you ever ask me why I am doing something, I will leave you. So Shantanu agreed with that condition. He was so infatuated by the beauty of Ganga. He just agreed. And but that's why he couldn't stop Ganga from killing the children. When the 8th son was about to be taken to the river to be drowned, Shantanu couldn't retain himself. He just said, "Why are you doing such a thing? How can you be so cruel, killing your own children in this way? Please spare this one." So then Ganga told, okay, now that you broke your promise, I will leave. However, this child will need my care, so I'll take him with me, but when he grows up, I'll send him back to you. So this child of Shantanu was Devavrata, who later became known as Bhishma. Bhishma was very valiant, very powerful, wonderful personality. He grew up in the heavenly planet. He grew up studying under Brihaspati and learning warfare from Parashuram. So then when he was 16 years, then Ganga sent him to his father. So Bhishma became very attached to his father, and the father became very attached to him. So they were practically constant companions. They were not so much of a father and son, they were more like a friend, intimate friend. So one day while hunting, Shantanu came across an extremely beautiful girl. And that woman was Padmavati. Satyavati. So Satyavati was the daughter of a fisherman king. And so the astrological reading mentioned that her son would become king. So when Shantanu approached the fisherman king for his daughter in marriage, then the fisherman king Dwaraka told him that yes, I can give you my daughter on a condition that her son will become the king. So Shantanu said, I already have a son. He has already been coronated, he is my successor to the throne. Then Dwaraka told, then forget about getting married to my daughter. So Shantanu came back to his palace. Bhishma could see that he was, for some reason, he is very depressed. So he asked, but he wouldn't tell him. Then he asked the chariot driver, and the chariot driver told him what happened. So then Bhishma said, can you take me to that place? So he said, yes, sure. So he took him to that place. He spoke to the fisherman king, and the fisherman king said, okay, I already told your father that I can offer my daughter to him provided her son becomes the king. So Bhishma said, fine, I'll relinquish my claim over the throne. This fisherman was very cunning. So he said, okay, you may relinquish your claim over the throne, but what about your children? If they do, then there will be a conflict among the family members. And then Bhishma assured him that he would never get married. So because he had taken such a terrible vow, that's why he got that name Bhishma. So Mahabharata actually gives a very wonderful demonstration of karmic reactions. For example, see, Bhishma took a vow not to have any claim over the throne, not to get married. But what happened? The two sons of Satyavati, Chitrangad and Birja, died young. One died fighting with the Jakshas, Chitrangada, and the other, Birja, died out of consumption, out of tuberculosis. And so now there is no successor to the throne. like Satyavati's father wanted to secure her sons to become the king, and now they did become king, but they died, and now there is no one to succeed the throne. Satyavati appealed to Bhishma, please, you take over the kingdom, you become the king. Bhishma said no. She even urged him to get married and have children so that there would be some successor. But Bhishma's response was that he has taken a vow that he would never get married. So, in that situation, the two queens that were there, Ambika and Ambalika, they actually, because their husband died, Vichitravirja died prematurely, so their half-brother, Vichitravirja's half-brother, Vasdev, was invited. And in the Vedic culture, when the husband dies and the wife doesn't have any children, then she can have children from the brother-in-law. That culture was there previously, but now, of course, that culture is not permissible. And anyway, so that in that way, Vasdev was his half-brother, another son of Satyavati. So Vasdev was called, and Vasdev was asked to procreate in the womb of the queens. And as a result of that, Dhritarashtra and Pandu and Vidura were born. So, in due course of time, when they were born, Dhritarashtra was blind, so he couldn't become a king. So Pandu became the king. But Pandu, due to some curse, Pandu also died young. And Pandu had 5 children. They are the Pandavas, and Dhritarashtra had 100 children, headed by Duryodhana. Now see, Dhritarashtra, because he was blind, he couldn't become a king. But after Pandu died, Dhritarashtra became the king. But actually, it was Duryodhana who was managing the whole scene. And Duryodhana was extremely crooked, extremely dishonest, and is a personification of all bad qualities. Duryodhana actually is an incarnation of Kali. And Duryodhana and Pandavas developed a deep animosity. Pandavas were Vaishnavas, so they did not really care for that, any position and assets. But Duryodhana became very envious of them. So as a result of that, eventually, now they're meeting in a battle of Kurukshetra. So in the battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna became the chariot driver of Arjuna, and so he was driving Arjuna's chariot. So when the war was about to begin, Arjuna requested Krishna to take the chariot close to the enemy line so that he could see who he'll have to fight with. But when he saw that all his relatives, his guru Dronacharya, his grandfather Bhishma, Duryodhana, Ashwatthama, like they all grew up together, they're brothers. And his uncle, Shalva, so they all on the enemy line. And so Duryodhana, Arjuna became very much afflicted with that sight. And he wanted to, he decided not to fight that battle. He gave various reasons why this fight is not appropriate, how this fight, this battle will cause so much damage to the society. But still, Krishna actually advised him to fight. And it is not that Krishna advised him to fight, Krishna instructed him with true knowledge. And then Krishna left it up to him to decide what he wanted to do. So in Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna is giving is the real knowledge. So, then so Arjun, we can see how bewildered he became, and then finally Arjun approached Krishna, submitting himself. So this is the point we have been discussing for last few days. What devotion actually entails? Devotion begins with surrender. Devotion is a process of surrender. So that's how we have to understand. And to approach that world of devotion, we must approach a bona fide spiritual master. And then that spiritual master will impart the knowledge. That is the basic principle. So that's why we see that Arjun now, after being completely bewildered, is requesting Krishna that he is submitting himself to him as his disciple. That means he is now ready to accept instructions from him. So Arjun said, maybe you all can take note of the number of the verses and make it a point to contemplate or read them to understand these points properly. Are you all listening carefully? How many of you are taking notes? Very good, very good. So, the 7th verse of 2nd chapter, Arjun is admitting his inability to decide what to do, what not to do. And that's why he is accepting Krishna as his spiritual master. The verse goes like, Karpanya dosa pahato sabhava prichhami tvang dharma samhura cheta jachreya san nashchitang bruhitan me shishyastehang sadhimang tang propannam. I am submitting myself completely to you. Shishyastehang. I am becoming your disciple. So you please impart this knowledge unto me. Karpanna, how many of you know this verse? Karpanna dosha pahato sabhava prichhami tvang dharma sammura cheta jachreyas sa nishchitang bruhitan me shishyastehang sadhimang tang propannam. So, in this way, Arjun surrendered himself to Krishna. As I mentioned, with the surrender, the spiritual life begins. Then Sanjay told that saying this, Arjun gave up his bow, an arrow, Gandiv bow. And na yotsa iti govindam ukta tushting babhubaha. Govinda, I can't fight. I will not fight. Saying that, he dropped his weapon and he decided not to fight. Eva mukta rishikesha gurakesha parantapaha na yotsa iti govindam ukta tushnim bhubhipaha. I shall not fight, and fell silent. But then Krishna started to advise Arjuna. Krishna's advice to Arjuna was, Arjuna, you're speaking like a wise man, but you don't have the knowledge. Because you're lamenting over something that one should not lament. So it's not befitting you. And then Krishna started to advise Arjuna on the science of Krishna consciousness, saying that Arjuna, you are speaking about killing your enemy, killing your friends, killing your relatives. But actually, there was never a time when you, I, and all these kings did not exist. We are existing now, and in future also. These three personalities, in future also, you will encounter. That is, I just lost that chain. Anyway, Krishna, in future also there will never be a time when you will not be here, I will not be here, and they will not be here. We have always been here, you, I, and these kings, and we are still here, and we will continue to be here. So there will never be a time when we won't be here. Then he goes to the main point, that this body is changing. But in spite of the change of the body, we are not changing. So who are the real we? In spite of the change of the body, we are not changing. So who are we? We are the owners of the body. We are the spirit souls. So this is how Krishna, right at the beginning, is making a distinction between the body and the soul. We all are thinking that we are our body, and we don't have any information about the soul. And that is the ignorance. So Krishna is taking Arjuna out of his ignorance by giving him the real knowledge. What is the real knowledge? The knowledge about the soul. Knowledge about the soul. And then he started to give the nature of the soul. Dehi nashmin jatha dehe, that is 2:13. Dehi nashmin jatha dehe Kaumaram jovanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhirastatra na muhyati. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Sober person means one who is situated in proper knowledge. See how wonderfully Krishna established the difference between the body and the soul. Let us consider the logic behind it, the difference between the body and the soul. Krishna made the logic in this way. The body is changing from childhood to youth to old age and so forth. Right? Now, although the body changes, are you the same or you also changed? You are the same. So in this way he is pointing out that the change of the body is not affecting you. You remain somebody who is unaffected by the body. Therefore, when the body is finished, you will continue to exist. Then who are you? If I ask you, who are you? Spirit souls. Very good. Then Krishna is telling the nature of the spirit soul. The nature of the spirit soul. Avinasi tu tad viddhi yena sarvam idam tatam. Vinasham abhayashasya na kaschit kartum arhati. Avinashi. Avinashi means, vinash means destroy. Avinashi means indestructible. The soul is indestructible. That which pervades the entire body. See what pervades the entire body? Is it? What pervades the entire body? Consciousness. And yes, the soul is the source of that consciousness. That which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. Soul is imperishable. Then, did I give the number of this one? 17. 217. Then we go to 220. Na jayate mriyate va kadachin nayang bhutva bhavita va na bhuya ajo nitya shashvata ayang purana na hannate hannamane sharire. For the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. Na jayate, the soul is never born, nor will it ever die. Mriyate va kadachin. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Then Krishna gives one very nice example. Text 22. Vashangshi jirnani jatha bihaya navani grinhati naroparani tatha sharirani bihaya jirnani annani shangjati navani dehi. Jirnani vashangshi jatha bihaya. The word bihaya means giving up. Jirnani means, jirna means worn out, old. Vashangsi means dress. Just as we discard the old dress and then put on a new one, similarly, when this body becomes old, the soul or the proprietor or the owner of the body leaves that body and takes up a new one. So what is the relationship between the soul and the body? The relationship between the soul and the body is like a person and his dress. The soul is the person, body is the dress. Vashangshi Jirnan. This is such a beautiful verse. I gave the number 22. Then again, Krishna is telling the characteristic of the soul. Nainang chinnanti shastrani. Shastra means, astra means weapon. Chinnanti, cut. What does weapons do? They cut. But the soul cannot be cut by any weapon. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. So that is the nature of the soul. It is not affected by any condition of this material world. Weapons cannot cut it, fire cannot burn it, water cannot moisten it, and air cannot wither it. So this is how the soul's characteristic and nature has been established by Krishna. Then Krishna is giving the characteristics of this body. The nature of this body is Jatasya hi dhruvam mrityur dhrubam janma mritasya cha. Whoever is born, the body is born, the body will die. Can anyone refute that? Can anyone defeat that? No. No matter how much people want to live forever, but this body cannot be preserved. Only illiterate, uneducated people, people in ignorant, they try to make this body immortal. Like the mummify the bodies. That was a culture in Egypt. Try to preserve the soul, not the body. And they have done that to Lenin's body also. In Russia, when you go there, the center of the city, there is a museum. So you can see there are people in total ignorance. And because of their ignorance, they are trying to preserve the body, thinking the body is the self. But whereas the Hindu culture, the Vedic culture, as soon as the body is dead, take it and burn it. Get rid of it. As soon as it's possible. You know how soon it should be? In the Vedic culture says that if somebody dies during the day, then his body should be burned before the sunset. And if someone dies at night, then his body should be burnt before sunrise. How could they act in such a way? Because they are situated in knowledge. Only when one has spiritual knowledge, one can act like that. But those who are in ignorance, they say, no, hold on to the body. Because this is how we can see who is situated in knowledge and who is situated in ignorance. And Krishna then is urging Arjuna to fight the battle. Krishna is saying, Bhoktarang Bhogaisharja prashaktanam taya parhita chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhi samadhona vidhiyate. Why people develop that kind of mentality? Who are those people? Those who do not aspire for spiritual knowledge. Those who are bhogaisharja prashaktanam. Those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence. Sense enjoyment and material opulence. Those who are too attached to that and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Vyavasayatmika buddhi samadho na vidhiyate. So, you see, Krishna, this is 244. Bhogaisharja prashaktanam taya parhita chetasam. So, do you think it's a good idea to become attached to sense gratification and material opulence? How many of you think that it's not a good idea? Or maybe I asked the wrong way. How many of you think it's a good idea? Huh? No one. Okay, I got the answer. So, sadhona vidhyate. They don't develop attraction to understand the spiritual reality. Then Krishna urges Arjuna to act in a proper way. And then he advises that Arjuna, you have the right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. You have right to perform your prescribed duties, but you do not have the right to, you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Karmanne badhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachanam. Ma karma phala hetur bhur ma te sangasteshu sangasta karmana. You have the right to perform your prescribed duties, but you do not have any right to claim them, the fruits of action. Never consider the cause of the results of your activities. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. So this is actually, Krishna is giving us an information how to become detached. So that's 47. Then 48 is Yogastha Kuru Karmani Sangang Takta Dhananjaya Sangang Takta Dhanas Jaya Dhananjaya Siddha Siddho Samo Bhutva Samatvang Yoga Uchyate. The definition of yoga is perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. Anyway, in this way, Krishna speaks about how one gets entangled in the material nature. Then we go to the third chapter. In the third chapter, Krishna is instructing how to act. And Krishna is telling, in this world, there are two ways. There are two ways. Loke Ashmin Dibidha Nishta. Dibidha means two types of nishtha. And pura prokta mayanagha, I have told that in the past. Jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. Jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. The Sankhas follow the process of jnana, knowledge, and yogis or bhakti yogis perform the process of devotional service. And in this way, Krishna pointed out that living entity has to act. Nahi kaschit ksanamopi jatu tishtat akarmakrit. Without acting, one cannot stay even for a moment. Therefore, it's advisable that you become active in action. Anyway, so in this way Krishna started to instruct Arjuna. What was the first lesson that Krishna gave to Arjuna? Our actual identity is not this body, but the soul. And then Krishna is telling that we must act. Without acting, we cannot stay. Nahi kaschit ksanamopi jatu karmani akarmakrit. Without working, we can't even stay for a moment. Therefore, we must act. But the actions can be of two types: sense gratification or engagement in devotional service. Arjuna is bringing the third consideration also here of action. That there are only two types. Either we act for our sense gratification or we don't, or we act for Krishna. The third consideration is not to act. But Krishna emphatically telling that's not possible. If you think that action is bad, therefore we'll give up action, not act, no. Inaction is not possible because nahi kaschit ksanamopi. Even for a moment, a living entity cannot stay without acting. So how can you say that you will stay without acting? You may sit down at one place. Can you stop your mind? You can sit down at one place, or you may be even sleeping, not acting at all. But in your sleep, aren't you breathing? In your sleep, isn't your heart pumping? Isn't your stomach digesting? Even when a mosquito comes, you slap it. So, in your sleep. So, without acting, you cannot stay even for a moment. But the consideration is, okay, actions are bad. So what do? What is the positive way? One thing you can say, oh, yeah, I'm acting in a bad way, so I will not act. But the thing is that you cannot stay without acting. But the solution is right action, good action. And what is the right action? Right action is service to Krishna. That is why it's called yoga. Because this is going to link us up to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so should we invite some questions at this point?
said this Satta Vasu, they got cursed by Vasishtha Rishi. So they, like demigods, they got in the form of human. So that's fall down. But I have heard that even demigods also pray that we wanted to come to earthly planet for achieve his perfection. How this?
Good. Demigods are also praying, provided they know the benefit of coming to the earth planet and getting the human body. Right? But if they're thinking, oh, I'm a demigod, why should I go down and become? So the point is, the demigods who know how to get out of this material nature, those who know the benefit of becoming a devotee of Krishna, they want to come to the earth planet. Any other question? Oh, I see. We have quite a few questions here. So there is a question, no name. Whose question is this? Okay, I'll read it out. Oh, acha. From Harendra Mohan Raj. I thought it said Hare Krishna Maharaj. Who is Hare Krishna Mohan Raj? Okay. Okay. So you stayed back, huh? Okay, very good. You explained about how Krishna really loved us, loved his devotees in Vrindavan because they treated him as a friend. How can this relate to how we worship Krishna, as a god or a friend or both? You see, as long as you remember that Krishna is God, you can't actually deal with him like a friend. For example, how do you deal with your friends? When you meet him, put your arm around his shoulder and make fun of him, joke with him. But can you do that when you know that Krishna is God? Or meaning, can you go to the altar and put your arm around Krishna? Right? But in Vrindavan, the cowherd boys can do that. Why? Because their Krishna is not God to them. He's a cowherd boy, their friend. You get the point? So that's why that when we worship him, we have to worship him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as we do in the altar, right? For example, so you are sitting with your friend. Let's consider, how the friendship is actually. When you are with a friend, and he is eating something from his plate, you are eating. Then he says, oh, this is so nice. And you say, well, let me taste it. And you pick it up from his plate and eat it. Right? But when you're offering bhoga to Krishna, can he ever do things like that? But in Vrindavan, the cowherd boys do that. Because to them, Krishna is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is a cowherd boy, their friend. You see, so therefore, if we really want to develop friendship with Krishna, then we have to go to Vrindavan. And there we have to be influenced by Jogamaya's arrangement. And then only we'll be able to deal with Krishna. Satish Krishna Das. Hare Krishna, Srila Gurudev, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances unto your lotus feet. Thank you so much for a wonderful seminar. My question is, yesterday's class you spoke about Samanta Panchak. That river is now present or not? It's not a river, it's a lake. And yes, it's still present. This one is from Abhay. Please accept, okay. My question is from previous session. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur took sannyas by standing in front of his spiritual master's photo. So my question is, how they got sannyas name? Good. Very good point. How did he get the name? He already had a name. That is, he got the title because of his astrological genius. He got a title, Siddhanta Saraswati. The scholars of India gave him that title. So he used that title and just put a bhakti in front of it and Swami at the end of it. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami. Vinita Ramchandani. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Srimad Bhagavatam 6:14-11 mentions King Chitraketu had 10 million wives. My question is, are there other kings too who had more wives than Krishna had? You mentioned one already. Chitraketu, yes. Then this one is Jagat Das. Lord told in Bhagavad Gita, Adityanam Ahang Vishnu. That Vishnu is different or same Supreme Personality of Godhead. As you told, Adityas is a category of demigods. Good, very good. You see, the name Aditya comes from Aditi. Right? Like Aditi's sons are Adityas. Diti's sons are Daityas. So Manu's sons are Manavas. So this way, from the father or mother, one gets his identity also. So Aditi had one son. His name was Trivikram. That is Bamandev. So that is Vishnu. So he has been addressed as Vishnu. Also, another consideration is, Lord Vishnu also appeared as a demigod, who is protecting the demigods. So that is also Vishnu. It's a long question, Nimai Sundar Das. Dandavat Pranam Guru Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. From scriptures like Mahabharata, we get to know that though Arjun, being a pure devotee of the Lord, time to time exhibit his secondary nature as a Kshatriya and acts accordingly. So while reviving our original consciousness or Krishna consciousness, how one should act or deal while executing his social spiritual duties. Another thing in this relation, that it is very difficult to ascertain one's secondary nature. And I heard in one of the talks by His Holiness Sachinandan Maharaj that it takes 12 years to know his nature. Please elaborate this point. Okay, I'll go to the first one. That you see, the nature is nature, and devotional service is to use the nature or use the propensities, use the tendencies and talents in serving Krishna. You get the point? And I don't know what you mean by secondary nature. The nature is nature. Primary nature or secondary nature, I don't know. What do you mean by secondary nature? So that's that's not nature. That's, as you say, it's propensity. So if some propensities, they use it in Krishna service. And I don't know why. I mean, what Sachinanda Maharaj meant that it takes 12 years to know one's nature. Who is in ignorance, who never cultivates, not only 12 years, it'll take him millions of births. On the other hand, when he takes to Krishna consciousness, then he gives up his material nature and comes to his spiritual identity. That it doesn't depend on time, that will depend upon one's intensity of devotion. Right? Vishal. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, okay. My question is from yesterday's class, that you said that one should not take initiation from his father. Is something prescribed about this in scripture? Please explain. Yeah, the scripture says that one should not take initiation from his biological father. Okay, it has to be taken from somebody else. That's why Bhakti Vinod Thakur did not give initiation to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. You get it? Laranya. Haribol. Okay. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. You said devotion is a process of surrender. How can fallen souls such as myself surrender to the Lord? Just by surrendering. Right? Okay. The thing is, how can you surrender? When you hear about him, then you get to know how great he is. Then you got to know how wonderfully he takes care of his devotees and protects his devotees. Then what would you like to do? Huh? Yes. So, didn't you say surrender? So, so that is the way to surrender. Hear about Krishna, read about Krishna, recognize how great he is, then what will happen? Then it will be, Krishna, I am surrendered to you. Alright? Because I know you will always protect me. So don't you want to be protected by Krishna? Won't it be wonderful when you are protected by Krishna? Okay. Thank you. Rajeshri, Radhika. Okay. हरे कृष्ण गुरु महाराज, दंडवत प्रणाम गुरु महाराज। जैसे आपने कहा कि कर्मकांड विष के घड़े के समान है, लेकिन कोई बार ऐसी क्या बनता है परिस्थितियाँ। ओके, ऐसी परिस्थितियाँ बनती हैं कि हमें कर्मकांड का हिस्सा बनना पड़ता है। उस समय हमें क्या करना चाहिए? जब बीमारी होता है ना, तब कभी कभी पॉइजन भी लेना पड़ता है दवाई के लिए। हाँ, दवाई जो है वो पॉइजन की तरह है, पॉइजन ही है, बल्कि विशेष स्थिति में वो पॉइजन इलाज लाता है। तो वैसे ही जो तुम कह रहे हो कि कुछ स्थिति में ऐसा करना पड़ता है, जब करना पड़ता है तो करो। लेकिन कर्मकांड का उद्देश्य मत बनाओ। असल उद्देश्य क्या होना चाहिए? असल उद्देश्य वेरी गुड। तब कर्मकांड क्या हुआ? हाँ, वही बात है। ठीक है। श्याम प्यारी दासी, Guru Maharaj, you said Karmakanda and Gyankanda are two pots of poison. One who drinks this is his very existence is doomed. Then why it is explained in Bhagavad Gita? Kindly explain. It's been explained, it's been mentioned in Bhagavad Gita so that one recognize that it is one step to go to a next step. But when you go to the next step, then is there any need for that step? What do? When you're climbing on a ladder, when you take one step and after another, then do you have any need for the previous step? No. And especially when you are going one-way traffic, just going up. If you are worried about coming down, then it was needed. But when you don't worry about coming down, Kirti Kumari Dasi, your question. Okay, please accept, okay, etc. I do not know if I understood correctly. The path of Gyan is compared to a pot of poison. Gyan may or may not lead to bhakti. But then we see that Gyan is one of the sons of Bhakti Devi. So in that sense, Gyan flowing from bhakti cannot be poison, right? Yeah. See, it's compared to poison because you're searching for nectar. When your goal is nectar, if it is not nectar, then it is compared to, right? Or it is opposite to nectar, it's compared to poison. It's not poison in that sense, right? So, and you see, when Jnana comes on its own, then it's fine. But the point is, Jnana should not be the goal. Bhakti is the goal, along with Bhakti, Jnana is automatically coming. So when it is available as a bonus, then it's no problem. Karunika Devi Dasi. If a warrior in fighting in the war for his country is right, or he should think the reason for the fight and then decide to fight. I want to ask how a person should behave for his action in the material world. Please guide us. You see, there are two considerations. One is social or material responsibility or duty, and the other is spiritual responsibility. So when one has joined the army and fighting for his country, then he has to fight, because that is what he has selected. Just as when one joined a company as an engineer to build a bridge, he'll have to build a bridge, right? He cannot question, will this bridge be used in Krishna's service? If not, then I'm not going to work on that. You can't, because that is what you're getting paid for. So similarly, those who are fighting, in those who join the army, and then they have to fight, right? A soldier. V. Rambhadran. Oh yeah. Arenuna. My understanding is the soul is pure as it is a part of Krishna. But the soul carries the karmic reactions over birth and death. Where are the karmic reactions stored? Do they form a part of the mind, intelligence and false ego, which get carried over? Thank you. Yes, the karmic reactions remain in the subtle body. As you mentioned, does it remain in the mind, intelligence and false ego? In simple words, we can say that when we do something, don't our mind get affected, but doesn't our mind get affected by that? Like when you do something very good, how do you feel in the mind? You feel elated, you feel happy. When you do something wrong, and even though no one saw you, how do you feel in your mind? You feel heavy. So this is how our action affects our mind, meaning the subtle body. And according to our action, the subtle body takes the shape. And according to that shape, the subtle body takes the soul to the next body. Is it clear? Rasamurti Das. Okay. I thank you so much for your wonderful class. My question is, sometimes it is very difficult to understand Krishna's pastimes, how we can be fully absorbed in it. So, sometimes it is very difficult to understand Krishna's pastimes. Then you're saying how we can fully be absorbed in Lord's pastimes. You see, as I told earlier, to begin with, Krishna's activities are inconceivable. Right? That is how you have to begin. Inconceivable means we cannot understand. So with that understanding, we have to approach Krishna's pastimes. Right? Otherwise, if you try to figure out how can anybody lift a mountain, if you try, will you ever be able to understand it? So don't try to understand it. Krishna did it. Krishna can do it. All right? What to speak of a mountain? Just by his thought, Krishna is making all these universes floating in the space. Can you fathom that? Can you figure that out? So don't try to understand it. Okay? Just accept it and relish it. Just accept it and appreciate it. Manoj, we hear so much about birth, old age, disease and death. Also observe it in our day-to-day life and try to remember these teachings, but then also we forget how to realize these teachings. Yeah? So, again, another question, like, although we are seeing people are dying and getting old and so forth, diseased, but we think that it's not going to happen to us. Right? That's the problem. Then wait for it till it comes. Then you will see how it comes. Okay? Now that you are young and full of vitality, you're thinking, yeah, I'll never get old. But give it another 40 years and you'll see. Okay? Shilavati Radha Dasi, Kolkata, from internet. I'm very, very grateful to you for accepting me as your disciple. We hear from exalted Vaishnavas that it is important to do vichar, or self-assessment every day, and that we may maintain a journal and write down our progress. My humble request is, if you can kindly enlighten us with some practical ways of being self-assessment, doing self-assessment every day, so that we can become progressive devotees. Also, I'll be very obliged if you can kindly explain the meaning of the word Shilavati. So, yes, self-assessment is good. Like Bhakti Vinod Thakur actually mentioned that on every Ekadasi, we should consider how much progress we made from previous Ekadasi. So this is the way he is suggesting that we assess our progress. And as you said, yes, you can maintain a journal and write down your progress. Yeah, that's a good way. And as you asked, to suggest some practical way of doing self-assessment. We have to make a yardstick, or judging or measuring factor, that I am here. Say, you can start off with what time I'm getting up in the morning, how soon I'm chanting how long it takes me to finish my rounds, and how many times we are reading Prabhupada's books, what kind of service I am rendering to Krishna, how many books I distributed. That way it reminds me that now we are expecting from the GBC that everybody should be involved in book distribution. And you know what the target is? Just one book a week. Is it a big challenge, big task? Okay, let me ask, how many of you want to distribute books? Well, maybe I should ask, how many of you don't want to distribute books? Okay. So how many of you want to distribute at least one big book a week? Oh, the hands that didn't go up, that means that they want to distribute more than one books? Okay, let's make that book to be a big one. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. And so, Shilavati, you asked what's the meaning of the name Shilavati. It's, if I'm not mistaken, it's one of the names of Srimati Radharani. Here, Shila means jewel. The one who is decorated with jewels. She is Shilavati. Thank you. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.